I just want to tell you a little bit about the Institute of Marine Affairs. We're a government-funded marine and environmental research institute in Trinidad and Tobago. IMA was established by an act of parliament in 1976, following negotiation for an agreement signed between our government and the United Nations in 1974. We became operational in 1978, so we've been around for about 43 years. In 1990, our act was actually amended to expand our regional scope. IMA is mandated by law to collect, analyze, and disseminate information related to the economic, technological, environmental, social, and legal development in marine affairs, and to formulate and implement specific programs and projects. Um, in terms of our facilities at the Institute, I'll start first in terms of our expertise. So IMA is located in Chaguaramas in northern Trinidad, and we are currently building a field station at Pigeon Point in Tobago. We currently have about 90 full-time staff members. However, our full complement of staff is over 100 persons. Within our research department, we have 14 research officers at the master's and PhD level with expertise that span from oceanography, marine ecology, coral reef ecology, wetlands ecology, GIS, fisheries and aquaculture, and marine policy and governance. Then we have our own finance and administrative department. So we manage our own finances at the Institute. We have an information center with responsibility for public education and outreach. And we have a library that is available to the public with everything that's marine. We also have an information technology area where they're basically provide us with support, technology support, and also in terms of development of databases. We have our operations department that, of course, is responsible for all our facilities, as well as our vessels and vehicles, and of course, our own human resource department. We do our own hiring. We don't go through the government, even though we fall under the remit of the Ministry of Planning and Development. In terms of laboratories, we have our water, sediment, and biota quality laboratories where we test for hydrocarbons. For instance, IMA, we do oil fingerprinting, and we have responsibility under the our National Oil Spill Contingency Plan for doing oil fingerprinting to determine perpetrators of an oil spill. We also have nutrients and heavy metal labs. We're in the process of having our laboratory ISO certified under the nutrient scope, and IMA is also the regional activity center for the Cartagena Convention, land-based sources of pollution in the Caribbean. So we basically support a lot of the small islands when it comes to addressing land-based sources of pollution. And we're currently working to complete a regional nutrient management strategy for the region. We also have microbiology lab where we do a lot of beach water quality testing, and this is very important for our tourism sector, looking at fecal coliform in bathing beach and recreational areas. We have our ecology labs, that quite a few in terms of agent growth, benthic coral reef wetlands. Geology, we do beach monitoring for erosion and accretion, and we do things like sediment grain size analysis to see how that changed over time. Then, of course, we have our remote sensing and GIS facility. We also have one of the only marine reference collection in Trinidad and Tobago, specimens that have been collected since we started back in the 1970s. And in addition to these facilities, IMA also has, we only recently set up our marine aquaculture facility, mariculture facility, sorry. We've been doing aquaculture for a number of years, focused on fresh water, and we've been successful in establishing what we call a recirculating aquaculture system where we would have grown shrimp, but now we're focusing on finfish, so we're eventually going into cage culture. Next slide. Now, IMA Strategic Plan 2019-2024 was recently approved by, actually in 2019 was approved by our cabinet. And the goal of that is to make contribution to sustainable economic development of Trinidad and Tobago and the region by leveraging marine science, coastal biodiversity conservation for decision and policy making. So our research activity will seek to support development of marine-based business, both at the micro and macro level, and bring about the development of a true blue economy. Some of the related blue economy projects that have been started and some are proposed is, first of all, in order to grow the blue economy, you need the enabling policy and legislative environment. So IMA has been leading an initiative in Trinidad and Tobago to develop an integrated coastal zone management policy. We have created a draft policy and that is now with our cabinet for approval. And under the ICCM policy, we have also developed an action plan for implementation that speaks to developing marine spatial plans for marine areas. And we have started a pilot looking at developing a marine spatial plan in our Northwest Peninsula with the intent of expanding it into our whole Gulf of Paria area, because that's where most of our economic activities occur in terms of fishing, maritime activities, as well as oil and gas exploration. One of our new projects, we're implementing a mariculture project with an overarching goal to develop working business model for the control and consistent production of various aquatic species, with the expectation that the output would create investment opportunities for the private sector and support sustainable coastal livelihood. We have an emphasis on creating sustainable coastal livelihood. Now, in terms of our other project, quantifying carbon sequestration in mangrove forests in Trinidad and Tobago, it has been estimated that the Caribbean region could lose up to 5% GDP over the next decade if government fail to step up their resilience effort and adapt to climate change. The Paris Agreement recognized the key role that forests play in buffering the impacts of carbon emission. And mangrove forests, although occupying a small extent than terrestrial forests, have been demonstrated to sequester vastly more carbon per hectare than forests. So in collaboration with UWI, the IMA is currently undertaking research to quantify carbon sequestration and storage within the woody biomass of mangrove trees and attach a monetary value for this service. The vast majority of carbon, however, in mangrove forests are actually found in the soil. So we have been able to access some funding through the British High Commission, and we're doing a regional project in Trinidad, Suriname, and Guyana, trying to estimate carbon storage in mangrove soils under different types of situations, from areas that have been recently restored mangrove areas to areas that are polluted, to see how storage are impacted. And finally, we have a lionfish fish fort project that we have proposed, and we're hoping to get funding to start with at the ending of the year. Before the end of the year, the aim of this is basically protecting our fisheries in Tobago by promoting the marine, the lionfish as a food source, and also as a potential to develop it as a fisheries. We're basically going with the tag, eat it to beat it, so that we can reduce the amount of it on our reefs and therefore protect our coral reefs. So these are just some of the projects the IME are working with Read the Blue Economy and some of the expertise we have at the Institute of Marine Affairs. So thank you for the opportunity to provide some information on the IME. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Juman. This is very exciting to see that we are partnering with an institute with that level of expertise. It is very exciting for us. So essentially, the IMA will now be executing the call for the innovation challenge that we have launched. And just to give you a little bit more information about the process for selecting the projects and how it's going to work. So the first step is always that the private sector companies would submit an application form, which is essentially a project concept note. It describes what the firm wants to accomplish and how would the funding be used in a broad sense. And it is important to have some additional documents because we are targeting companies that have been in operation for 3 years in the Caribbean. So once the concept note has been submitted, then the next step is the ones that have the highest potential for increasing revenues, jobs, and having a positive impact as well on the water system, the water ecosystems. will then be receiving technical assistance from Compete Caribbean and IMA to develop the project concept note into a comprehensive innovation business plan. And this innovation business plan essentially is the full proposal that would really include an analysis of the market potential, the identification of different options and strategic planning, as well as the implementation plan and budget. And as well as, obviously, as mentioned before, the funding we provide is for technical assistance. So technical assistance means essentially that we're financing consulting services from experts. So the innovation business plan will then include the terms of reference of the consultancies that would be necessary to implement the project. And then these innovation business plans are then submitted to an independent investment panel. According to Compete Caribbean's operating regulations, all the projects that are selected competitively have to be finally identified or selected by independent group of experts. So these projects will be pitched and evaluated by the investment panel, and the ones that are selected will then move into implementation. The implementation may last 24 months. To give an idea of what technical assistance may include, these are some examples here, but it's not necessarily limited to those particular activities. It depends on the need of each project. And in terms of eligibility, obviously the companies have to be operating in one of our 13 beneficiary countries of Compete Caribbean. They are listed here, and they have to be have been in operation for at least 3 years. And we are also asking for a commitment, counterpart contribution. So essentially the firms that will be applying would have to demonstrate skin in the game and investment on their part, and we're requesting 50%, but half of which can be done in time. So this slide essentially illustrates an example of how the funding can work. So if Compete Caribbean is providing $160,000, which represents 50% of the total budget, then you can see that the firm would then be contributing $80,000 US. Now, let me clarify here that the firm would be investing into their own development as a company, right? So it's not that they have to donate anything to anyone. They are investing resources, because one of the reasons is also that because Compete Caribbean doesn't finance equipment, it's oftentimes important for the company to also be purchasing some equipment. The evaluation criteria, essentially is the level of innovation and scalability, the feasibility of the project, job creation, revenue generation, and impact on the blue economy. And the application process includes, at this point of time, just the online application form is relatively simple to fill, because we will then help the companies that have the highest potential with a consultant to help them develop a full-blown innovation business plans in the next step. And then the proof of incorporation and letter of commitment for the counterpart contribution. So that's it for me now, Siobhan. We will open up for question and answer later, right?